Welcome everyone. This is our last session of our careers conference this week, unless of course you're a member, and then you've got one more special session tomorrow morning. Um, so today we have a session with the Careers and Enterprise Company and Mark, who is our head of membership. Mark, shall I leave you to introduce our guest today?
Yeah, excellent. Thank you very much, Sarah Jane. Um, Good afternoon, everybody. As Sarah Jane mentioned, today we're going to be talking about some work that we are currently getting pretty close to finishing, I'd say, Marie, with the Careers and Enterprise Company, which is very exciting. I am Mark. I am the head of membership for Future First. So I look after our membership schools and work with you all across the country. If you are a current member, you probably know my name or voice because you'll have heard me talking to you. And this is Marie. I'll let you introduce yourself, Marie, if that's okay.
Hi everyone, yep, Marie Jobson from Careers and Enterprise Company. I work within the Education Development team. So you probably are quite familiar with Careers and Enterprise Company. We're the national body for careers education, but specifically I work within the Education Development team with a focus on quality and content. Thanks, Mark.
Amazing. Thanks, Marie. So the structure of this call today, this webinar, is we're going to run through some details about the project that we're currently working on. And there's a good chunk at the end for a question and answer session. So hopefully Marie is raring and ready to go, and hopefully I'll be able to help with a few bits too. I definitely have some questions for you, Marie, so I'm going to get in first. But just before I go any further, for anyone who doesn't know who Future First are, Marie mentioned who the Careers Enterprise Company are. We are Future First. We are a social mobility charity, and we are the only UK charity that works with state schools to build alumni networks. So that's the thing we're passionate about. Our mission is that every state school is supported by a thriving alumni network, and that they are valuable volunteers that can help to broaden young people's horizons, answer questions, and be part of the school community. There's lots more information on who we are on our website, as I'm sure you would expect, and I won't keep going on about it. But that is what we do. That is what we're passionate about. So if you've never heard us before and you've ended up here because you saw a link on social media or somewhere else, please don't hesitate to get in touch. If you have questions about alumni, if there's any way that we can help and support you, you can just go to our website, futurefirst.org.uk, and you can find out lots more information there. Effectively, what we're talking here today about is a virtual learning environment session that we have developed alongside the Careers and Enterprise Company as part of the Careers and Enterprise Academy. So it'll be accessible through the Careers and Enterprise Academy. There will be an online course dedicated to working effectively with your alumni. So we know that there is lots of changes going on at the moment in the world of careers, and there's been updated Gatsby benchmarks, there's been statutory guidance, there's been all these things coming out around the same sort of time. All this work around modern work experience, which I think I've been to enough Career Hubs events to remember is over a parliamentary term. I don't know who told them to say that, Marie, but my gosh, they're saying it a lot. But obviously, this is a lot of additional stuff for you guys to focus on. So we want to talk specifically about alumni, and we've tried to make it as easy as possible and as accessible as possible to as many schools as possible. And that's through this collaboration with the Careers and Enterprise Company. So the course is designed to help you to start thinking about your alumni, think about where you are with your alumni, and ultimately develop some strategic goals with your alumni that you may or may not choose to put into your strategic careers plan for your school. So hopefully it all ties into that work that you're already doing, but gives you a chance to really think about a whole extra set of things that you'll be able to tackle and a value add that you can bring to your school through those alumni. We know that alumni are important, and I'm not going to go through why they're important here and now, but they are really important role models, and they are required by, or the statutory guidance requires you to work with alumni now. So hopefully this will help you to get a bit of a head start on that. So let's talk about what's actually in the course. 4 modules within the course. They're titled Inspire, Review, Strategy and Implementation. And I'm going to run through each one now with you, roughly what you get. And then I'm going to ask Marie my questions and open the floor to other people's questions. So as you can see, this is all designed about leading to that key strategic outcomes and those goals that you'll be able to set at the end. So module 1, this is the Inspire module. It will talk about the role of the Gatsby benchmarks and the updated guidance around them. Obviously, it covers who we are at Future First. It also talks about why alumni are unique and why they're important. and some testimonials about the real world impact of alumni. So if you're sat there and you're here because you read a bit of guidance or you saw a social media post, this is a really important chance for you to start thinking about why alumni matter. There are answers to that question. Hopefully, as part of that module, you'll also take some time to reflect on any specific reasons they might matter for you personally or your school or your learners, and get a chance to really think about how those alumni can really add some value. The second module is all about looking at where you currently are. So we have provided, well, in the module, there's a list of all sorts of different statements, and you can mark where you are against them. You can sort of benchmark yourself as to how you're getting on currently with your alumni. The idea of that exercise is to give you a chance later on to start working out where best to spend that resource and that time to help develop that strategy and what those objectives need to be to have the most impact. Module 3, this is the big chunky part of it, and there's lots of information in Module 3. So there's some stuff in Module 3 about some hints and tips and some practical resources around building your network, events calendars. There are sessions that are fully developed in there that you can download and run with your alumni in school the day after they come out. There's some stuff about event management and volunteer management, which is really important, especially if you're not used to hosting people in your school or bringing volunteers in, and to make sure that you turn those one-time volunteers into multiple-time volunteers and alumni that come back year after year. And there's some stuff here about whole school buy-in. So we know that the Gatsby benchmarks require careers across the curriculum, and part of that is how to embed alumni across the curriculum. Right, a really nice way to be able to do that is if the dream scenario is a year from you starting this process, your head of science goes and organises an event with your alumni and brings alumni into school to talk to them about what a career in STEM might look like. And in an ideal world, you'll have had nothing to do with that. It will just happen itself and tick that benchmark, give those young people those role models, and really help that head of science to answer those questions about what careers in STEM can look like. As I say, the last module is a lot about reflection. It's about reviewing where you're at. That second module we did, you'll get a chance to review where we are, think about any actions and tips and things that you can take forward. But ideally, you'll end up with some key learning objectives and some key strategic objectives at the other end, and things that you're going to tackle with your alumni, as well as some really practical next steps. We're not here to just sort of give you the big picture stuff. We want those practical next steps as to what's coming up next. So that's probably about enough of me talking through some slides for a while, Marie. If it's okay with you, Marie, I'm going to start with my questions, and then if you're out there in the ether and you have a question for Marie, please do add it into the Q&A. If you look on your screen at the bottom, you should have a Q&A section. There's a little speech bubble with a question mark. You can just click on there and pop your question in there, and they'll pop up hopefully at my end, and I can ask them to Marie as we go along. I think for me, Marie, one of the things that I've been reflecting on with this course is obviously we've covered a fair breadth of information throughout the course. And I was wondering if anything in there jumped out at you as a sort of a key piece of information that you think everyone needs to know, and what you think that the learnings will be from completing the course, or what we're hoping for.
I think, first of all, I can kind of pick up, I know it's been such a positive experience kind of working on the course with you. So I've really enjoyed getting to grips with the materials, and what really struck me is how reflective it is of the process that we like to support careers leaders undertake anyway, around kind of understanding the value benefit of things, evaluating your current position, developing a strategy, and then kind of, getting going with the implementation. So there's a real nice synergy with how careers leadership itself evolves, like how you've approached that effective use of alumni. So that was like a key reflection that I had. But I think what's really important to kind of acknowledge, not only that alumni have got much more of a profile under the updated benchmarks, but they are a really powerful and often underused resource that really contribute to that sense of not just the strength of the careers provision, broadening aspiration, but to that sense of community. So I think that the course will really unlock that potential of alumni, but really how it shows as well, step by step, how to unlock effective use of alumni directly with planned improvements to learner outcomes, or how you can directly connect it to your strategic priorities that are whole school, special school, or college as well. So I think it's tapping into that really powerful but underused resource is it really comes across from the course.
Yeah, absolutely. I was reflecting on that myself, mate. I think you mentioned a word there that sprung in my head, and I've been thinking about a lot this week around community. And I think when I look at lots of the challenge that I'm talking to careers leads about around work experience, and lots of other bits and pieces of legislation that changed and lots of additional things they're feeling there's a lot going on. Quite often, that answer of community can be a solve for lots of those problems, I think. So I think it's a really important focus when you're building that network is exactly that, creating that community around your school or even around your multi-academy trust, which can obviously give you an even bigger reach into a world of
Yeah.
other people too. Um, so let's touch on those changes, Maria. Obviously, there are changes that have recently come out to the Gatsby benchmarks and statutory guidance to go with it. There's also the changes that have been experienced that have been announced around long-term goals around modern work experience. I guess I'd really be interested in your take on how important alumni are when you think about the sort of the bigger context of all of those things and how important it is to get schools working with their alumni.
Yeah, you've really touched on kind of how crucial a moment this is for careers leadership. And I think there's a lot to celebrate. Like before we kind of get into that, what alumni can bring to the discussion and how they can kind of be part of the solution going forward. I think it's a really exciting time in careers at the moment. Like that next 10 years report from Gatsby, I was a careers leader in one of the original pilot schools. So it's
Oh
brilliant to
wow.
just kind of take a breath and go, wow, like the 10 years has happened and we've got to where we are. And then, now we've had the updated benchmarks and that updated stat guidance with the vision for work experience and what that can achieve for young people. So I think it's a really crucial moment. Let's take a step back, have a look at our strategy. What is the change we want to see for our young people? And we talk a lot through, I lead the careers impact system work at Careers and Enterprise Company. So the internal leadership review, peer-to-peer reviews, if people have been involved with that, we talk about thinking about our learners as leavers. So we think about learners as alumni kind of already, but so
Mm.
it is a really kind of it's a precious time to kind of take a step back, look at strategy, and then prepare for the next 10 years and kind of get going with that. But an alumni play a huge role in that, not just that your learners are already your alumni of the future, but alumni who've gone out into different pathways, into different employment models, or into different kind of training providers, etc. They bring that real world insight. They're relatable, they bring diverse experience, and they can really enrich every part, not just of your careers provision, but every part of your careers provision, but every part of your kind of delivery as a school, special school, or college, that sense of community. And that I think it is really important to kind of think about them as that untapped resource in a way, because there is a lot that we want to achieve for young people in the next 10 years. So how can we really harness that potential that alumni bring within the careers provision? It's a really good time to sit and kind of do that reflection, I think.
Yeah, I totally agree. I was at the Hampshire Careers Hub conference the other day, and I was talking to one of the careers leads there, and she was saying to me that she was also involved in Gatsby quite a long time ago now, and she was saying to be honest, at the point that came out, it felt like there was a huge change and it was never going to work, and I didn't know what I was doing. But look at where we are now. And she actually saw this moment as a moment, I think, similar to what you're saying there, of actually a chance to reflect, to review, but actually to push on and think
Yeah,
how much improvement we've seen in 10 years. Actually, there are some really big challenges here. But like you say, there are resources like alumni and like perhaps other parts within your careers place, your community around your school that you can tap into to get that support and drive that careers provision on. Um, I thought it was a really, I think probably non-surprising to you, Marie. She was a very positive, sort of glass half full careers lead, which is I think quite a lot of our careers leads out there in the world. And it felt really encouraging to hear her just go, yeah, it's a little bit scary, it's a little bit frightening, but actually, like you said, there's lots of untapped resource and there's lots more to do. It was a very exciting thought, I thought.
good.
We have a couple of really practical questions coming in on the Q&A, Marie. How long will the course take? I mean, I think I can probably answer that. It should be around an hour to complete the whole of the course. It might be slightly longer or slightly less, depending on how quickly you work, but in that right ballpark. And there's one here about people who perhaps have questions as the course is ongoing. And is there a location they can address those to?
There's probably two answers to that. So there is a help centre if there's technical issues, but I'll put in the chat if you've got questions kind of about content and the benchmarks, then there is an inbox for education, for our education team specifically, but the help centre would direct any questions to the right person anyway. So there is a help centre and contact through the whole of the Digital Academy. So it sits within quite a lot of resource and support for careers leaders anyway. So there's induction in there. There's also free modules for staff. There's free modules for governors, education leaders within that academy. And they're all supported by a help centre contact and inbox on there. So
amazing. Yeah, and as Marie says, I think it's at Future First we're also incredibly passionate about what we do, and quite frankly, all you have to do is email us, and someone will come back to you pretty quickly and tell you what we think about something and how we might be able to help. So please don't hesitate to come our way, and don't hesitate to get involved. There's a question here, Marie, about how the course can be accessed and when it will be available. The course hopefully will be available next week. Well, obviously we'll let you know, and we'll tweet about when it's available, and I'm sure the Careers and Enterprise Company will as well, and make an announcement that it's available there. As far as accessing it, it's through your Careers and Enterprise Academy. Is that correct?
It is. Yeah, I will make sure that I put the link in the chat as we speak.
Amazing. And I'm right in thinking, aren't I, Marie, that there's lots of other resources there that some of our users might find useful and helpful in lots of different areas of careers.
Exactly. Yeah, we launched this in January this year, and there's some good content in there. So that's where it will sit. I'll pop it in the chat.
Amazing. That's really helpful. I think I'm through some of those questions, so I'm going to ask my next one if that's okay, because I've got lots. One of the things that I wanted to touch on was one of the struggles that we talk a lot to schools about, and a lot of schools come to us with this question around getting their SLT to share the goal around alumni. So I think it's fairly obvious that me and you sat here today are advocates for the use of alumni in schools, and we really see that benefit. And I'm lucky enough that every week I get to go somewhere and see it in action, in reality. So every part of me knows that this is a great thing to do. But I think rightly so, we've had some feedback from some careers leads that getting that message up the chain can be a bit of a challenge. And we're just wondering whether you had any tips or any thoughts about how they might be able to do that.
Again, it really, really strikes me that this is so similar to that question about careers and SLT backing. And that's another kind of key part of the updates to the Gatsby benchmarks, is that real emphasis on, you mentioned it as well, that whole school, special school, college approach, but SLT backing. So almost kind of, it's the same type of strategies that we advocate careers leaders and careers teams use in general for their careers provision, that you would probably apply to kind of support an SLT to see the value of effective use of alumni. So how do you link alumni engagement to whole institution priorities? So are they coming in deliberately to talk about broadening aspiration? Are they coming in deliberately to really kind of support that improved destination agenda or re-engagement of learners who are maybe kind of struggling with motivation? Or kind of, does it have a specific angle on well-being? So whatever it is that is the priority in that institution at the time, is the alumni engagement linked to that? And that'll really tap into SLT seeing it as part of the solution to whatever it is that's kind of on their mind. And then the other similar things that we would say is, how are you showcasing the impact of your careers provision? Similarly, how are you showcasing that impact of using alumni kind of within your communications, case studies, etc., about how are you really showing that alumni have positively influenced learner outcomes? And start small. Don't that's what I love about the course. When somebody asks about the guided learning hours, it could take a few hours, but it could be that you want to go in and get some really quick wins. I think there's some lovely activities in there that are quite plug and play, but start small. So if you are running an event for the first time with alumni, invite your SLT in to observe or participate, and really so that they can see the value firsthand around what your aim is. So definitely kind of engage in the course in that way, around looking at those things that you can just get going on tomorrow, but there's loads in there that maybe give you that space to think a bit more strategically about how can I align alumni engagement much more closely to the school or college development plan and things like that. So there's loads of different rhythms and ways that you can engage with the content on the course.
Yeah, there's some really good thoughts there, Maria. I particularly am captured by the one of, I think this might speak to the way that I'm influenced and learn and experience things, but the idea of bringing those SLT into that interaction, I think, is a really powerful one, and actually is a really great way to live it and to bring them into that room. I think is a really great idea. As I say, for me as a person, that's what wins me over to the way of things, and seeing that impact and talking to those young people whilst they're there, I think is a really great idea. I have one more, maybe two more questions, if that's okay, Maria, and I will let you get on with your day. One of the questions I had was around, do you think that as we go forward into this modern work experience path, and we move forward into schools trying to find those modern work experience opportunities for their young people, that alumni have a position to play here? Because my gut is that they do, and I think we're doing a lot of work at the moment trying to work out how. But I'd be really interested in your take as to how you maybe think they could be utilised, or whether you think there is a role here for alumni in terms of supporting schools with that.
Definitely. I knew I wouldn't get away with not answering a question on modern work
experience. I'm sorry to do it to you, Marie.
But I think alumni can play a really important role, either in because there's different ways that you can use alumni. I think the automatic one is to think about how they can kind of be engaged in, being in front of learners. But also it could be tapping into alumni around, can they help identify meaningful work experience opportunities? So they may not always be involved in delivery of encounters or experiences, but alumni can volunteer in many different ways around helping you identify a pipeline, or identify, connect to a sector or a business. So it's tapping into that kind of willingness to give back, and helping them to understand what your aim is with the work experience. I think that's what we're really kind of keen to position, is that work experience, just the same as effective engagement with alumni, should be part of whatever it is the school or college is absolutely focused on. So, helping alumni understand what the change is that you want to see through work experiences, what your ask is, and then how can they either support really directly, or can they support you indirectly through introductions, connections, inspiration, or even kind of expertise and consultancy kind of volunteering. So it's tapping into that vast kind of pool that you've got. Remember, and I know Mark's kind of really covered this, but the vision for modern work experience is not to be delivered by September. They've introduced a vision that will take us, as Mark says, kind of through that parliamentary term. So you should kind of just be thinking already primarily on what are the changes to those measurable elements of benchmark 6, and we've got that lovely meaningful definition for work experiences. So thinking about how can alumni really kind of support with that meaningful achievement at benchmark 6, while also bringing them in to that longer term thinking about preparing for that vision for work experience as well. But again, start small, build relationships, and just kind of factor them in as part of your team, if you like, on your wider strategic careers planning, including that preparation for work experience.
Yeah, I think that's really good. But it comes back down to that community again, doesn't it? And that actually those alumni can be your route, as you mentioned. I'd never thought of it as a route into an industry rather than a route to an individual or a company. I think, like you say, those people will have jobs, they'll have connections, they'll have networks of their own, and using those people as friends of your school to leverage those communications can be a really great idea. I have one last question for you, and then I'll check the chat one last time. My last question really is just whether the CEC, whether the Careers and Enterprise Company have any additional resources out there that might help schools who are starting to think about alumni, or any new resources that you want to plug whilst we're here, that might help people take on some of those challenges around those changes that are coming.
I think kind of the key, we're really excited about this new course around effective engagement of alumni because it really teases it out. But as I've said kind of a couple of times, the approach that Mark and the team have taken at Future First to really think about effective engagement is really similar to how we would think about effective development of your provision to really make sure that careers leadership is strategic and it's sustainable and that you're kind of exhausting every resource at your fingertips, including alumni. So I am going to put one link in the chat, and it's to our resource directory page for meaningful achievement of the Gatsby benchmarks. It is an updated page. It's got links to the updated toolkit, so it goes into the detail of how alumni are referred to now in the benchmarks, and some kind of key resource support for all the updated measurable elements. But there's lots of good stuff in there, so I'll just put the one link in the chat.
Amazing. Thank you very much for that, Marie. We will obviously take those links and reshare them, and we'll put them on our social media. I'm sure Sarah Jane can do that. So if anybody's here today and wants to go and find those links and closes the chat and can't find them again, we'll make sure they're out there somewhere so you'll be able to find them. Much like Marie, we're super passionate about alumni, obviously, and I always end all of our calls by saying if there's something we can do to help, please do ask. I think there's lots of people out there who perhaps might have a question, might think it's obvious, might think they should have done something earlier. We're here to help. Don't be a stranger. Drop me an email. You can go on our website and book a call directly with me. You can send an email to our info and you'll get an email straight back from us. We'll do our best to help you in any way we can. And I want to say a massive thank you to you, Marie, for helping us to co-author this course, but also for your time today. We're very grateful.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Excellent. Have a lovely day, everybody. Thank you very much.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.